I faced it all, and I stood tall, and did it my way. Woo! Yeah!
Welcome back.
18. Episode 18.
We're finally legal.
Yeah, we made it. Woo. Time to party, right?
Legal.
Just can't drink.
Legal. Just can't drink.
Just can't drink.
Oh, man.
Boys.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome.
I guess without further ado, let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Welcome back, episode 18 of Let's Talk About It. My name is Thomas McCauley, the head of partner relations. To my left, I have
Frank, a.k.a. Grizz Luando, the COO.
Frankie D, CEO.
Appio Fragoletti, Director of Banking Relations.
And now, introducing the number one chief business officer in the world, TJ Ragusa.
Crowd goes
Thank you. Couldn't ask for a better intro.
I know that guy.
Dude, I was sweating bullets not to mess up your last name.
Listen, I mean, you're holding the candle to Andrew Park, man. I got to give him a heads up. You're coming for his job now.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm there. And I'm not stopping at him. I'm coming to Bruce Buffer.
Bruce,
I'm next.
I know you're watching this, Bruce.
Yeah,
And that was a weak one, so
Yeah.
I've done better. I apologize.
It's okay.
I
That was fantastic.
I didn't want to say it myself.
Dude,
I'll
I've been
agree.
talking a lot today. I haven't drank.
Wait
even
till
a sip of
Saturday
water.
night.
Tom,
Because if
we're-
something happens, he's next in line.
Well, see, we got to save our voices now, though. That's the thing, right?
Oh,
like,
mine
we got
never
to keep
goes
this
away.
hour under a little bit of tame control. Just we got a guy to root for on Saturday, or you guys do. At least I have to remain impartial. But
Yeah.
We do got a guy.
Saturday's going to be a fun day, to say the least.
Yeah, Saturday's going to be fun.
Islanders game, too.
Yeah. But anyway, TJ, introduce yourself. Talk to us.
So yeah, I'm the Chief Business Officer of Flex Fight Series. Started off with them as a broadcast commentator in 2021. That followed some experience doing football games and college basketball games, and I've just kind of always had a love for the sport. I reached a point in a different career where I asked myself if I could do anything on any given day, what would that be? And it's watch fights, and I've somehow tricked the entire world into letting me watch fights for a living.
That's a great way to put
Better
it.
than that. One
Living
of
the
those,
dream.
love what you do, don't work a day in your life situations, kind of, Although I'm sure
Exactly.
it's a lot of work, and we were talking beforehand, a lot goes into, what you do, so, fucking great stuff right there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate the support from Lexington Capital. You guys coming out to support Phil Whelan back in December. It was fantastic to have you in the building, and I at least got the sentiment that you guys had a good time, and I'm glad because that was actually one of our lower selling shows of all time. What you guys are going to see on Saturday is a complete sellout at Stereo Garden, so that's going to be even bigger energy. So if you guys were happy that first time, it'll be real fun this one.
It was rough to move around that last one. I can literally only imagine, this next
We brought most of the energy.
I was just saying, we're still going to be the loudest ones in the room. Don't forget,
believe it.
we doubled up too.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
doubled
have
up, too.
doubled up since then.
Yeah, that was a 20-person party. We got a 40-person party coming now,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Gonna be great stuff right there.
I didn't even hear about that head count. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Whole
And
different
Phil
energy.
has, I think he's got 50 or 60 other people coming on top of
Phil's
his personal
bringing a lot
sales.
of people though, man. I'm
Oh, yeah.
excited. He's up and coming.
Yeah, he's a growing star, man. I'm glad we got to talk about him so early on, just because he's a guy coming out of Long Island MMA where they do nothing but breed fantastic fighters who do all the right things, right? A guy who's really covering all of his bases, getting better in every facet of the sport, and handling all the back end of it too, right? You mentioned it's obviously a lot of work for us on the paperwork side of things, like dealing with the state, dealing with the sanctioning bodies, insurance, medical, all that stuff. But Phil is a guy who makes my job really easy, and I tell him that all the time. It's always a pleasure to work with the kid.
100%.
He's definitely PR trained too. I mean, when we had the kid on here, he was just talking like he was, like on a UFC
Like a post-game
commentation.
interview.
Yeah, like he knew exactly what
it's
to
true.
say. He
It's
was
true.
ready to go. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys got a good fighter there.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a big heart.
Absolutely,
He's a fighter at
and that is something that we take a lot of pride in at Flex Fights too. It's one of the things that we like to think makes us different is that when you're a fighter for us, you are not just fighting for another amateur promotion, right? Or an early pro promotion. Now we're the only ones doing pro in New York, other than the UFC or PFL. But having that experience, getting in front of cameras, getting to do media things like this, and again having those outside opportunities provided by people like you to have Phil come on and talk about what he's doing, his journey, because it really is it's an admirable and inspirational thing. I'm inspired every day by our fighters. These guys sacrifice every day. They miss holidays, family parties, weddings, all that kind of thing. If they're doing all that just to make weight and make sure that they're getting to where they need to be, I can get up at 6 in the morning and work until 8 or whenever it takes to make their opportunities come true.
100%.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
It's also really cool. I mean, even in here too, I've known Phil for so many years. Like, we were in the same school district. He went to like the opposing school in our district. But it's just funny, like, to watch all of us grow up and then find ourselves in different areas and then right back somehow connected together.
Yeah, I lost touch with Phil too for a while, and then I came back and he's like, he's an MMA fighter, you know, beating people up for a living. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But even like the life of a fighter is just like, it really is like the movies. Like when you watch Rocky and stuff like that, like these guys really put a lot of time, effort, soul, heart. You know, their whole life is into this. And what Phil told me, and what's really cool, because coming from an entrepreneur myself, is he treats it like it's his business, right? It's his brand, it's his business that he's growing, and he treats it that way. So.
And you really have to. You know, that's one of those things that I mentioned. He does everything right, and especially early on in your amateur career, not a lot of guys really have sight of that bigger picture that you're trying to be a prize fighter. You are yourself a business. There needs to be a prize for you to fight for. If nobody wants to watch you fight, it's no prize. Or you end up on the B side, and you know you never want to be on that side of things. But you know, Phil, again, he's doing all the right things. He's building this following, and it grows every time, right? Like he didn't start out doing 100 tickets. I think his first fight was like 25 or something like that. But he took the platform for what it was worth. We had a lot of really good conversations with him, and you know, he's out here doing a lot of really good things to promote himself and the brand.
It's kind of like I'm sorry.
No, sorry about that. I was gonna say we also like reconnected at my old job. He got a job at my old job, and I was talking to him about what he does, and he was like, "I'm training to be an MMA fighter," and I was like, "Awesome! Like, let me know when your first fight is. Like, I want to help you out. Like, I want to sponsor you." That was before I even was here. That was before this even existed.
Really?
Yeah. And then the second that he had his fight coming up, I hit him up, and he was like, "Dude, I was going to hit you up like today." And I was like, "No way." He was like, "I remember what you told me back in the back in Cheesecake Factory."
So
not sponsored, by the way, unfortunately. But it was just really cool to watch that
We're
happen.
all growing together. Lexington, Flex Fights, Phil. You know, everybody's growing together, and it's a beautiful thing just seeing kids from our hometown. I mean, turn into what we're turning into. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
The Wolves of Center Ridge.
The Wolves of Center Ridge. That's funny. TJ, one thing I wanted to ask you about is like, what is the day in the life of TJ? Like, what really goes on? You love what you do, right? It sounds like you like it.
You know, I wish there were 2 days that were the same, but there truly aren't. You know, I touched on a few of the different departments that I work in. You know, obviously anything public relations. I do a lot with the production, the broadcast, with that being my background and how I got into the fights to begin with. You know, obviously everything with insurance, the medicals, especially pro medicals. You know, with Pro MMA coming up this Saturday being a Pro MMA card with 3 fights, 6 fighters. We actually did have another fight fall out. So Jessica Ruiz and Anna Martinez. I'm disappointed we're not going to get to see that one. Hopefully we'll get to rebook that for a later date. But, you know, really there's just a lot of different steps to it where on a given day I'm on the phone with, you know, a fighter on the other side of the country. Next day I'm on the phone with an insurance broker in Texas. Next day I'm on the phone with chief medical officer of the New York State Athletic Commission. We're all over the place, man. And I wish there were 2 days, like I said, that were the same. But, you know, sometimes we're on the road picking things up that we have to do, right? Like there's one of the big things that we always like to keep to is that there's nobody bigger than the brand. So, you know, if I have to go pick up stickers and lay them down on the canvas, you know, I'm sure you guys saw me in December. At some point in every card, I end up being the guy who wipes up the blood off the mat. And I'm not afraid to do that. I don't care if I'm wearing a suit. You know, there's no one bigger than the brand. So
100%.
I like that. You mentioned the 2 the ladies dropped out. Do you guys have like a lot of women on your promotion? I know like UFC, like you might see like 1 or maybe 2 if you're lucky, like on their card. Like, do you guys have a good arsenal of female fighters?
Trying to get more. You know, I think when you look around the country, especially at the amateur rankings and really the early professional rankings too, there aren't a lot of women available at certain weight classes in matchups that make sense, right? So there is talent around, but like when you look at New York, for example, right? One of the ways that it makes a lot of sense to do a pro fight here is to not have to pay to fly somebody in, right? So if you have 2 people from New York, A side versus A side, math's a little bit better, right? So there just happens to not really be that many, and you see this in some men's divisions too, right? Like I look at the light heavyweight division, and we have a guy named Freddie Vidal who was set to make his pro debut back in October, and his opponent failed his physical the night of the fight. So both guys did everything they had to do to get there, and unfortunately just fell out, you know. But you know, and that kind of mirrors the women's division in that, like, I just can't get people to say yes to Freddie, right? And a lot of the women around have trained with each other or know each other. So those matchups that are local are kind of few and far between. And I touched on the point, you know, like not a lot of people really like to fly in for fights, right? Because you fight in a ticket seller, you may or may not be at a, you know, not a disadvantage. Everybody's a willing combatant. Anything can happen in any fight. But, you know, if you're not the ticket seller, you're not at an advantage, I would say.
Yeah, you don't got like the crowd behind you. You don't have the home field, like those kind of things, right?
Right, and you'll see that on Saturday too. The MMA main event, Devin Worth is a hometown guy. He's fighting a guy named Brian Topp, who's flying in now to fight for us for the second time as a professional. He does not back down from that challenge. You know, he came up in an underdog spot back in April against Devin's teammate Jeremy Puglia. Ended up winning by first round rear naked choke. So again, like I said, willing combatants, anything can happen in a fight, right? But Brian Topp's coming up here, and you know, that's a fight that Jeremy and his team were pretty convinced they were going to win. Unfortunately, it didn't go their way, but they have a chance to exact some revenge on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Wow, I like
Where's
that.
he from?
Brian
Yeah.
is from South Florida.
Oh wow.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's cool.
No, one of my favorite
Not a
guys to
bad
work
flight
with,
either.
man. Just like a consummate professional. Like another guy just did all the right things. You know, everything on time, deadlines, state stuff, all that. He's just got such a great attitude too. I don't think I've ever really seen the guy not smiling. Right? Like,
Yeah,
just
That's half the battle.
it really
That's
is.
half
Right?
the
Enjoying what you're
battle.
doing.
It's true.
keep it chugging.
It's true. Because even if it is grueling and you lose sometimes and you fail and things go left, you just always know that at the end of the day you're doing what you like doing, right? And at the end of the day you're going to wake up and you're going to be happy. And there's a lot of people who can't really say that every day. You know what I mean? So I think we're all blessed in this room to be able to say that.
Yeah,
It's like hard but easy to look past that. Like it's hard to take the step, but once you take the step, it's just you're gliding.
Yeah.
Like everything, it's so much easier after that.
yeah, exactly.
That's actually, I noticed an interaction that kind of that really exemplifies that. Actually, right before we started, I missed the gentleman's name who was walking out of here, but you said, you know, you asked him how his day was, Frankie, and he said every day's a great day here, and you said every day's a great day at this company, you know, and it's tough to on the tough days, right? Because we have that same kind of sentiment at Flex. I relate to that where there are tough days, right? Like there are days where it doesn't necessarily feel like every day's a great day, but when you do something that you love every day with people that you love and you enjoy your environment, no bad days.
Yeah, it's true.
There's people that wake up every single morning for 10, 20, 30 years of their life and hate everything that they do every single day.
Yeah.
Don't want to be that person ever, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the medical part of everything. I don't know why I didn't realize how intense the medical procedures are to, you know, you're testing, you're checking before you get into your fight. I don't know why I didn't realize because it's such a local fight, and this is my first fight I've ever been to was for Phil's first fight or our first fight with Phil. What goes into the medical procedures of checking, and how often do you have to? Because you're coming in 2 weeks early, you're coming in a week early, you're doing a night of check-in. What goes into all that?
No, it's a great question. It actually differs at both the pro level and the amateur level. So for Phil right now, and for all the amateurs and for the professional kickboxers, it's a hepatitis panel and an HIV screening. So relatively basic on that front. On that side of things, there's also some identity verification that goes into it. I give New York State a lot of credit for doing a great job on that, both the amateur level and the state level, making sure that people who are stepping into the cage should be there, are medically fit to do that, are in the right mental capacity to do that, are who they say they are, and not, you know, some 10-0 guy from Brazil pretending to be an 0-0 amateur with a white belt.
I am
And then,
12.
Have you had that before?
It happens in the sport, you know. We've not to that extent, but we have seen some people be a little bit dishonest about their combat sports history. And then just to finish answering your earlier question on the professional side of things, professional mixed martial arts, there's an MRI, ophthalmologist eye exam has to be an ophthalmologist, EKG with a tracing and a clearance from a blood doctor, cardiologist, and then that basic hepatitis panel plus a CBC plus a blood pregnancy test for women. And amateur women also have to pass a pregnancy test, but not a blood test.
These happen before all fights. They happen multiple times throughout the process.
Right. So your blood work is good for a year. If you're a professional, that eye exam, that EKG are good for a year. The MRI is good for 3 years. The MMA ID, that's the identity verification process. I believe that's good for 5 years, if I'm not mistaken.
What about like just your basic pre-fight checkups? I know Phil went in for his pre-fight checkup. He ended up getting his tire slashed while it was parked in the parking lot.
That was the weigh-in. That was the weigh-in.
Well,
That was the weigh-in. I'm sorry.
That was at the weigh-in, but that does actually relate to the physical. He was inside getting his physical when that happened. The physical happens at weigh-in, so we bring in a physician just to do it there because, again, we want to take as much as possible out of the fighter's hands so that they have less to think about going into the fight. Just worry about training the way that you have to, making weight, selling the fight. Those are the only three things you should be thinking about as a fighter going into it.
Yeah. Are there any dehydration tests that go into it? Because I remember growing up in wrestling, you had to take like a hydration test, and they test your body fat percentage to
Right,
see
they
how
took the
much
pins.
can you cut. Like legally, you can't cut beyond that, or else as a child you're harming yourself. Do you have any type of hydration test like that or anything?
No, I went through that same process as a high school wrestler, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But ironically enough, there is no test for martial artists, at least not in New York State and not in any state in the U.S. that I'm aware of.
You're a
Quick
man now.
question.
You can go beyond that point, I guess. If you choose
Yeah,
to.
I suppose so. You know, just your body, you have people around you, but maybe that is something that should be looked into. It's actually a great point to bring up.
Yeah.
Something I've always wondered about fighting in general, like organized fighting, does like the house pay for medical bills after? Like if they get hurt, if they get cut, if something happens, they have to go to the hospital.
Great question. So
do they pay for
everybody, that's actually part of what the sanctioning body makes sure that we do. So we're responsible for supplying the fighters with medical coverage. For professional mixed martial artists in New York State, that is $2 million in brain injury coverage per fighter. Obviously, the policy doesn't cost that, but it's still not cheap. And again, with us being the only ones doing it in New York, we're the only ones consistently purchasing that policy. We don't really have much purchasing power with the underwriters. So, you know, it's something that we just kind of have to deal with to bring opportunities to professional mixed martial artists in New York State. But there is an insurance requirement. So anytime that a fighter gets hurt in the cage, I have pre-signed claim forms at the side of the cage with the commission. Fighter goes over there, gets them, goes to the hospital, everything's covered. And you know the deductibles comes out of our pocket if it's
So you're not signing your life away. You're in good hands.
Yes, and what I will say too is it's always a good idea for everyone to have their own personal insurance too, because there is a limit to that coverage, right? And obviously I pay my deductible, and not to get into like the nuts and bolts of it, but there is a limit to that coverage under what I prepay for the policy. So it's always a good idea for everybody to have their coverage beyond that, because again, like I said, the insurance coverage is different for pros because New York State is making sure it's $2 million in brain injury coverage, like something you potentially need in a fight. Obviously, pros
Definitely
are
need your brain.
a little bit more, you know, trained in dealing that kind of damage. But I would suppose that's why the amateur insurance requirements are much less. But you know, again, always a good idea if you're a fighter, have your own insurance as well. I'm gonna have it for you, but get your own too.
Yeah.
Double down.
Yes.
I know you mentioned PFL was in New York too. I mean, I'm like into fighting a little bit. I didn't even realize that like they were a New York promotion, you know?
They're really international. You know, they have a presence kind of everywhere. They really take a lot of pride in like being that number 2 right now too, the UFC. They just purchased Bellator, so they just acquired a really strong base of talent. Wow. So, you know, again, like just from the outside looking in personally, I don't know if that product is going to be competing with them immediately yet. They also just lost their biggest star in Kayla Harrison to the UFC. But no, they are in New York every once in a while. They in 2022 they had their championships there. The semifinals were there last year. They come around November pretty much every year.
It's surprising too that you say they're. I thought one was bigger than them because like just being a Chinese-based promotion, you know, like billion people right there. You know, I didn't think that they would be lower than like PFL. But I guess after buying Bellator, you know,
globally they might be honestly, and because here's the thing in combat sports, right? You'll hear Jake Paul say something along the lines of, I sold 750,000 pay-per-views, I sold 1 million pay-per-views, whatever it is. Like, maybe that many people streamed it. Like, maybe, you know, who's actually checking this, right? Like, is the Securities and Exchange Commission coming in and making sure that they and we and the UFC and one championship is being honest about their pay-per-view buys? No. So it's, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But,
Gotcha.
But no, I mean, they have a huge presence. I'm not trying to take away from what one championship has because I very much I love their product. I'm a huge fan of it. Something that frankly we emulate slightly in that we do so many varied combat sports within the same show.
Yeah, that's what I love about that. Like you can watch, you know, MMA, you can watch Thai, you can watch, you know, boxing, kickboxing. So it's like really cool, like with that promotion. Again, with you guys too. Remember just the last one we were talking about before. I'm like, I saw guys with pads doing this, I saw no pads doing that. Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, this is awesome, you know?
Yeah, that comes back to the point of regulation too. Again, credit to New York State. Your first 2 fights, you fight under the novice rule set. So in kickboxing, that means you wear headgear and shin guards. In MMA, that means you wear shin guards. You're not allowed to strike to the head on the ground. No amateurs allowed a twisting submission. No elbows in amateur.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's grades to the rule set. Basically, the way that I perceive it is like they're giving kids time to find out that it's not for them without getting damaged too badly.
Okay.
Because again, it's not for everybody, man. It's for like 1% of people, if that.
It's an F around and find out sport.
I do really like the mix though, because you know different viewers have different styles that they like to watch. Some people like to watch wrestlers. Some people like to watch strikers. Some people like to watch a little bit of both. So when you have the MMA,
like it all.
yeah. You know, some people are picked like my dad. Like when we were growing up, he's like a boxing guy. So we started watching UFC when it first started to come around. He's like, look at them just hugging each other on the ground. like he doesn't get like how hard
that's
that
an
is.
art.
Yeah,
You
he
know,
doesn't
that
get how difficult and like mechanical it is almost. Like it's very strict and it's like you said, an art in itself. And so he's definitely a person who prefer to watch striking. So if you're watching, you know, like the flex fights, you got a guy come out, they're doing kickboxing, they're just standing and banging, punching each other and kicking each other in the face, and that's awesome to watch. And then you get the more technical wrestling side of it too when the UFC mixed martial arts fighters come out rather, and it's definitely a great event. You know, you get a little bit of everything.
Right. And that was really the spirit behind like UFC 1, right? And this whole sport even coming into place is like, what would happen if we had like a boxer, a kickboxer, karate guy, wrestler, jiu-jitsu guy, judo guy, all of them in one tournament, who comes out on top, right? And now we're at a point where we're 30 years into this sport. We've only been legal in New York now for 8 years or 7 years, since 2016. So now you're kind of seeing this evolution where guys like Phil are coming out with this wrestling skill set, but they've also been boxing, right? And like it's all kind of there already when you're 18. And like some of these kids are going pro at like 21, 22 years old because they're ready. You know, it's crazy to see. Our first ever pro champion, actually, 22 years old, Adam Livingston won that in October. Wow. And that was his 4th pro fight in a year.
Wow.
Is it-
Check the belt.
Yep.
Jeez.
Is it true that Bruce Lee like birthed the whole art of mixed martial arts?
Very much so, yeah. That more conceptually than anything else, he didn't, I think, like design. And again, I'm not very well versed in like Bruce Lee's life and times, but as I understand it, just kind of bringing to cinema the ideas of combining different arts. Like I believe it was kung fu and karate, whatever it was that he was blending. He was utilizing different elements from a lot of different striking styles. Like for example, in MMA today, you might see someone in the same fight throw a karate style side kick to the body and then square up and throw like a Muay Thai style teep or an elbow in the clinch, right? Like everyone is kind of practicing all those different kinds of martial arts. And I think that does very much come from Bruce Lee's influence. As back in that day, it was very much like you've seen the Karate Kid. Like those gyms would, go up against, or the schools rather would go up against each other. It was like gym versus gym and they were all karate, right? Then it became, when the jiu-jitsu guys were coming around, going into all the striking gyms, choking people out, it started becoming art versus art. Then it eventually all blended into MMA at UFC 1 in 1993. And, we are seeing a remarkable product now today where, even at the highest level, you look at the UFC last weekend, Ilya Topuria, who just defeated Alexander Volkanovski by a second round knockout, becoming the featherweight. Me either. I didn't exactly make money on that, but Ilya, man, he comes in with like just so much skill. How do you beat him? Because you can't take him down. He's amazing on the ground. He might choke you out. He's got sledgehammers for hands. Like just a well-rounded fighter.
He's young and hungry too.
Oh yeah.
He's young and hungry. Yeah, we were watching that fight here.
Yeah. It's like Deadliest Warrior in real life.
Yeah.
You ever watched that show back in the day?
Yeah. One question I have is like, what background have you noticed is to end up being the best MMA fighter? Like, is it the wrestlers? Is it the jiu-jitsu guys? Like, who you think is the best fighter?
It's such a great question, and
That is.
I am biased, and I know you're going to agree with me on this. I think it's wrestlers, right? I've always thought wrestler, just because like the way that I see it, right? Because I wrestled my whole life, and it took me a lifetime to develop that skill to where I was when I was 18 and trying to go to states and everything. And I don't think that you can truly achieve that without doing it for your whole life. Now, the same can be said for a boxer, right? I will never be able to throw a lead hook like Canelo Alvarez because I didn't grow up doing it, right? I didn't start throwing punches until I was 16 years old. So if your body hasn't grown in those neural pathways to your muscles, those muscular pathways, like it's just not quite as efficient, right? But I do think, in my estimation and in what I've seen, you can kind of cover that gap a little bit more quickly on the striking side of things than in the wrestling and grappling side of things, especially in an MMA context where, in 2018 we saw Khabib Nurmagomedov knock down Conor McGregor, right?
Yes, we did.
Less than
Yes,
anybody
we
ever thought they would see. But it, again, that also speaks to the evolution of the sport, where everybody I think is kind of good at everything now when they get there.
True. Yeah.
And I think that's going to change a lot in a decade too, because now there's MMA gyms everywhere. Like I grew up doing Taekwondo because there was a Taekwondo gym down the street. I wasn't interested in kicking people in the face, but when I got there, I was like, this is pretty cool. I can do it without the punching. Like, I'll kick. That's fine. But now there's MMA gyms everywhere. So now these kids are growing up, learning how to wrestle, learning how to strike, learning how to kick.
Yeah.
So there's going to be absolute units coming out in the next decade.
Yeah, my thing is that growing up, when we were younger at the times, people that wrestled, like, you wanted to be a badass. You wrestled from when you were a kid up until you were 18 years old. That's what you did your entire life. You're a badass. But if your parents put you into karate,
Keep talking. Keep talking.
Why would your parents put you into karate? Like, you're in middle school. Like, usually you go into karate, it's just to mess around. It's not like a serious thing when you're younger. Not granted when you're older. It's
discipline.
completely
A lot
different.
of
When
those
you're younger,
discipline
you're
stuff.
put in either because you're getting bullied or just because you want to have a little bit of fun. You want to learn a little bit. When you're wrestling, even as a kid, I mean, I don't know about everybody else's wrestling coach. I'm sure it's pretty much the same. They're in your face. They're training you. They're working you as a kid, growing up, elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's kind of a similar way where wrestling, at least now, has that background. But like you said, definitely could change because it's such a growing sport.
Yeah.
Having MMA so normalized.
Wrestling was an interesting thing when you were younger. It's like you're getting screamed at by a grown man, you're getting slammed under the pads by a grown man, then you got to go run around the halls of your school in your wrestling shoes with a plastic bag on you
Running
and
up
just
and
try
down
and
the
You're
stairs.
all
sweat it
hopping in
all
the
out.
showers
Yeah.
after.
That was honestly insane.
But that's actually a great point about the discipline too, because I think, I mean, obviously wrestling, you know, I think it fosters that. There was always that saying that every other high school had on the back of their shirt: wrestling doesn't build character, it reveals it, right? But you know, I think that that's something that's so important for kids to be involved in any capacity, whether it's karate, capoeira, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, anything, man, Krav Maga, whatever, right?
said, "Come
Some kind of disciplined martial art where you're there, structured every day with somebody giving you personal attention and teaching you life lessons within what you're learning physically, you know. And I think there's a lot of confidence that gives to kids. I think that's one of the biggest ways that you can solve bullying issues in schools. You know, it's
Everyone knows
just a
how to
fantastic
fight.
thing, right? And armed society is a polite society.
Yeah.
No,
My
for
sensei
sure.
used to make my teacher sign papers to make sure that I was doing my work in school. Like that's how
awesome.
disciplined they get.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
cool. It's actually really very good to have your child in some sort of combat sport when they're younger. It also teaches them the respect of another person. You know, you're not going to put your hands on this person because you know that you can hurt them, so you'll look for another way out. Or if need be, you can protect yourself. So it really teaches a lot of different dynamics for a young person growing up, rather than being overly aggressive. Like maybe you have a lot of rage, things are going bad at home. You know, you're not going to go to school and take out that aggression on somebody else because you have a mutual respect. You know, you're in the gym, you got kicked in the face yesterday, and you know how that feels. So you're not going to go and kick someone in the face for something so remedial.
I'll never forget my first day at jiu-jitsu. I got choked out by a 130-pound woman. There's nothing that's going to humble me more than that.
Dude, as a big guy, like who
Yeah, I
did
went to
a
school
little
with his hood up the
bits
next day.
Right? I'm like 20
Yeah.
years old at that time. I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I was a wrestler in high school. Like, you know, I can throw people around a jiu-jitsu gym, whatever. And then I get Darce choked by a 130-pound woman. I'm like, well, I'm not that tough.
That's my thing with so like I very much respect because like it breeds like for my thing wrestling breeds savages. I've never met a wrestler who isn't some kind of like savage. And then you get like into the other disciplines and like as Tom's saying they are a little more relaxed. So like my theory is like yes, you're a wrestler, you're going to get me down, but like once we're down, like I know what I'm doing more than you. You know, as someone like with jiu-jitsu background. So like yeah, take me down. Now we're in my field. You know what I mean? Like wrestlers don't know the chokes. They don't know like the full body movements. Like you guys are just trying to get the guy to, you know, pin.
don't know the
Yeah,
technical
he was like, yes, I
jokes, but
do. Yes, I do.
you know it.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
what
get
I'm
to
saying.
an
Like,
arm triangle
come
for a
on.
free
yeah,
headlock,
you
you
know,
know?
like you get your stuff running
Some
around,
gable
but like you
groups
know,
in
you
there.
get on the ground, like you get a black belt and you get a 30-year wrestler. You know what I mean? Like you guys are gonna have a great freaking combat, but then again, by the time you're on the ground, like that black belt in jiu-jitsu is gonna manhandle you.
Yeah,
You know?
I definitely did some BJJ and growing up as well. So I guess I feel like I guess I'm not even realizing that part of it. Like I always knew the chokes. I knew how to put you in a triangle choke
Yeah.
if I wanted to mess around with you during practice or kind of squirm my way around. Don't give my back because we're in a wrestling match. You know,
Yeah.
type of thing.
But that's the thing. You guys aren't like training to choke. You know,
Yeah.
you're training to get their back, to
Yeah.
get them on the ground, to get them out of the ring. So you know, like once you're down there and like you got him, like where does your expertise go? You know, now his kicks in. You know.
So TJ,
Escaping.
one question I did have also. I know setting up. Well, I don't know the ins and outs of setting up a fight, but I'm assuming setting up a fight at home is extremely tedious. What is it like to set up a fight away?
Meaning like when we go to the city because I live on Long Island, or meaning like when we go to Florida?
Like Florida.
Yeah, like
Whole other set of I wouldn't say issues or hurdles. It's ironically enough, man, like when we go out of state, it's actually easier most of the time. No, seriously,
Yeah.
because it's like I was saying about New York State, it's like, and again, I give them a lot of credit for doing a good job and not over regulating, but making sure for damn sure that everybody's going to be safe. When you go to a lot of other states, those regulations are not quite as stringent. For example, when you go to Florida and do an amateur card, I don't know if they've changed this. I hope they've changed this since May when we went down there, but you hire your own sanctioning body, which again, we do that here. You pick one, but like there was something where it like literally could have been anybody. We supplied our own judges, and thank God we brought our own from New York. We brought ISKA officials. We brought ISKA judges. We sanctioned the whole thing through a sanctioning body in Florida.
Yeah.
But to know that not everybody has to do that is kind of scary to me because it's like, all right, yeah, my cousin's the one judge, my uncle's the other judge, and
Yeah.
I don't care if you were on top for 15 minutes, you lost a decision. Like, you know, you hear some horror stories, but again, that's not to throw shade at anybody else or say that any other states aren't doing as good of a job. And, you know, just for example, like the medicals, like I outlined all the pro medicals in New York. Florida for a professional mixed martial artist, it's just an optometrist eye exam and some blood work, and
Oh wow.
yeah, you're in and out. But I think that's 6 months, every 6 months for them instead of having those tests good for a year. But I mean, organizationally is where it becomes a challenge, right? Because those aren't venues that we know, those aren't markets that we go to as often, that we can predict as accurately. All those kinds of things. There are also a lot of fighters that we don't necessarily have on our cards a lot, right? So we don't necessarily know exactly who the biggest star is. We're kind of looking at the crowds when they fought in the past and trying to go off of that. That's another really big reason why I think it's important to, like I said before, you continue bringing people in from out of state. It's always, or what we always try to do when we're flying somebody in, is not just to come in and be somebody to stand across from a ticket seller. We want you flying in because you're good enough to challenge for our title kind of thing. I'll give you an example. Brian Guerrero fought Mo Muhammad, who came up from Kaizen Tampa. He fought for us down when we were in Tampa in May. And that was probably my favorite fight that we've ever done. It was a kickboxing fight for 5 rounds. I could not tell you who won at the end of it. Brian ended up winning the title, our East Coast title, because we have 2 separate title systems for the amateurs. We have New York titles, Florida titles. If the New York title holder and the Florida title holder agree to fight each other, unify that as the East Coast title. So again, Brian and Mo, Grayson Fisher is another guy from that same gym. He'll be back actually fighting for our East Coast MMA title against Darwin Pena next month. But dude, we love to foster those connections, and again, just make this. We want this to be a national brand. This isn't just a place where you can be a star because you're from New York. This is a place where you can be a star because you're a fighter and you're on our platform.
Yeah.
I like that.
Absolutely.
One thing I had a question on too. So, and then correct me if I'm wrong. So with UFC, if it's one knee down or if it's both knee downs, you can't throw like a knee anymore. Is that like a rule overall? Like, do you guys not have that rule?
Yeah, that's unified global rule set. So the only, really the only place that you'll see like televised or in person where they don't follow that rule set is one championship.
Okay.
Because they have knees to the head of a grounded opponent. They don't have soccer kicks. It's not like old school,
Soccer kicks were vicious, dude. The fact that they
Shogun
allowed
Home,
those for a little bit, like, dude.
It's what got people our age into the sport,
like is that like a bad
No, like-
Bro, like they're right there, and you're just fucking
Go back and watch Jose Aldo's fights in Strikeforce. You'll see some.
That's crazy,
Or like with
bro.
like the one guy in the black gi got the doing the crucifix and was just drilling his head with
Yes.
elbows.
12 to
crazy.
12 to 6s or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
He
that's
was
all not
horizontal
allowed now.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Grizz, that and as it currently stands, if you have a hand or either knee on the ground in any level of mixed martial arts, amateur, professional, whatever, you're considered a grounded opponent. You cannot be stricken in the head under the unified global rule set. They are actually trying to change that right now, and I think it's for the better because again, it has started to create these scenarios where guys will like be in the clinch, they'll have somebody on their hip, and then they just start reaching for the ground. And now the guy behind him doesn't know, like, am I good? Can I knee you? Can I kick you? Like, and it's creating more harm than good. So now what Andy Foster in California, again, another spectacularly run commission. He does a great job over there. He's also the I believe his title is chairman of the commission and the ABC that makes mixed martial arts rules. So again, he's proposing this change where he's trying to make it that I believe it has to be your knee.
Okay.
I have to reread the rule. I just read about this last week. He just proposed this, but they are trying to change that so that like the hand, it's not going to be a thing anymore. It has to be an elbow or a knee.
Cool. Yeah.
So can you just soccer kick someone in the stomach if they're on their knees?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You'll see amateurs do that
That's
too. I
crazy.
think that's one of the most creative things that I see a lot of our guys do in those first novice fights, right? When you can't strike to the head on the ground. If you're a real good wrestler, you don't want to just wrestle for 9 minutes. Try to break his rib with your elbows, man. Like try to break his rib with your knees if you get out to side control, something like that, right?
Flying knee to the rib
Yeah, just be
while they're
violent.
on
Yeah.
the ground.
Yeah, bro. Get that knee up in the air and slam it right in.
Yeah.
One of my favorite strikes, and I think I'm glad that they'll never like get rid of this one, is like if you're just squared up with your opponent, you start like hammering at their feet, or you just get a good front leg kick to the
Kamaru Usman.
quad, bro.
Oh, the old John Jones oblique kick.
Yeah, the oblique
Yeah.
kick, bro. That'll ruin someone's day. I feel like it's not used enough.
You know what? You
Little
know,
geometry.
it ruins my day too when I'm trying to watch. What's his name? Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman fight, and Kamaru Usman's just
Yeah.
for like 4 rounds straight. All credit to you, Kamaru Usman's a demon, but
Because, like, bro, you don't
I
get that
was so
kick.
pissed watching that fight for 3 rounds, just like
Especially pay-per-view too. You
his
pay to
toes are
watch
just
it.
mashed potatoes. I'm like, all right, like you're dragging it.
But yeah, that's definitely like the oblique kick, dude. Like I hope they literally never get rid of that. It's
I don't think that they
underused.
will.
Yeah, it's underused.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's used enough for them to be like, oh, this is a problem. It's ruining guys' careers, right? Because in the same fight, you can knee bar somebody and do the same exact thing. But the most recent one that I remember actually, and there might have been a more recent one, Khalil Roundtree, I think it was like 2 years ago against Modestas Bukauskas. If you want to look up that highlight, just the whole knee goes backwards, bro. He couldn't have timed it better. Nasty.
Yeah,
Couldn't
filth.
have timed it better.
Well, that's the thing. Again, it's sick that I think that when I see this video.
So finding this.
I watch fights for a living, bro. I somehow trick the world, so I'm used to it at that point.
So when it comes to like, setting up a card and marketing it, what is your marketing tactics like? Is it strenuous? Is it quite easy? What exactly do you do to try and get as many eyes rather onto the fight itself?
I give our fighters a lot of credit for that because, I mean, the first thing that you got to do if you're going to sell a fight, it has to be a good fight. It has to be something that people want to watch, right? And we've noticed that all the time, that kids' ticket sales numbers will always go up when they're fighting either for a title or against somebody who is legitimately dangerous, who's going to talk shit to them on social media, who's going to get on a little... Yeah, Shiesty. Shout out Steve Picciotto,
I
man.
love that guy.
That kid is
Steve's
fantastic.
He was a phenomenal person just to
Savage.
watch. In the ring, I'll watch you again, Steve.
If you watching
but,
this, Steve,
Dude, Steve he is an entertainer, man, and and he's got the medal for it, right? Like that. Not everybody takes that tough of a fight in their first fight. He learned a lot in that cage that night.
I'm sure.
We were talking a little bit about that before with who his brother is, bro. That kid's not going to fail. He's got everything it takes to be a real fighter, and I think he's going to be just fine. I think that one loss is not going to set him back.
No, he's going to be like 30-1 probably. He's fucking guy was an animal. I could only he could be like the next kind of like McGregor guy. He's got that like kind of twang to him. So.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes that's all it takes is one loss to put
maybe
such
he'll
a
be
bad
on this
taste in your mouth.
podcast.
Yeah, let's get
That's
Shiesty on the
all.
podcast.
He's like, hey,
Lex talks about
you got no
Shiesty.
Shiesty for me?
Is he a local, Steve?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure
him
exactly
on.
which town he lives. Somewhere out east near here. I'm a Nassau guy. I don't know.
Why do we get this guy on, Remy?
Get him
Wow,
outta here.
Stereo Gun's really far for you. I was saying before, it's so local and you live in Nassau.
Man hit one of our potholes. We're like, wow, these are paved really nice.
The roads out here are better, man. Surprisingly.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you get closer to the city, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
More
Looping
tires
back,
on
so
that
you're
road.
saying it's big on your fighters as far as the marketing and the promotions and
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest thing, obviously, having a viable opponent that's going to make people want to watch, and then the fighters are really the ones who go out and market it to the fight. And this kind of comes back to that point about their support systems, right? Where these guys are sacrificing all the time. They're missing this family time. They're missing time with their friends. They're in the gym all day, pretty much every day. And a lot of these guys, like if you're on your own, right? If you don't have that family support system around you, it's really, really tough to make it. And that's it becomes an investment upon everybody around you, right? Not just your immediate family, all of your friends, all of your cousins, relatives, coworkers, everybody who wants to help support you on this dream. I think that's part of why people get so invested in a fighter's career, right? Because that's someone that you know and you love and you care about. And they're in there trying to kill someone who's trying to kill them. They're in danger, right? Like there's you can feel that in your heart, but they're doing that to chase a dream that is so unique, right? Like how many people do you know who do that? Well, I mean, maybe us. We know more people.
We know Phil.
We know Steve and Phil, yeah, you guys. But in my business, obviously, I know a lot of those guys. But again, it just kind of comes down to like what makes our job worth doing every day. Is that I think about a moment too where I brought it up earlier about Adam Livingston, our first pro champion. When you watch that video on our pay-per-view, from the back angle, you can see his daddy. He's got impeccable style. He's got this light blue suit on with a white shirt, open button, right?
Nice.
And Adam jumps up on the cage after winning by knockout, and the guy hands up, screaming. His whole family's going nuts, and you see those moments, and there's really every one of our fights, man. I never want to see anyone lose because I get to go through this whole process with them. You become so close with these guys, and you understand how much they're sacrificing to get to that moment, man. You're so elated, for the guy who wins that fight, but you are so gutted for the guy who loses every single time, man. It doesn't matter if it's a flying guy, if it's a guy from another country, if it's someone from New York, if it's someone from Mars, man. If you went through that whole process and did everything that you had to do to come fight on our show, first of all, thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to work for you. And, I can't. It never gets easier to swallow, right? Because somebody has to lose. It's a tough game.
When you put it in perspective like that, now I kind of feel bad because I'm always rooting for one guy, and then you forget that guy's got a family to go home to, and he's not happy.
When that FanDuel balance runs up.
We're not talking about that.
I mean, that's part of what makes it so beautiful, though. I mean, Tom, you mentioned the respect element of martial arts before too, and as much as these guys will get in each other's faces and scream and say horrible things to and about each other, there is that respect at the end of the day that they know that the guy standing across from them put everything into it that they did too. And once the fight happens, I can't count the amount of times on two hands or really even in my memory that I've seen guys be so hostile going into a fight, and then the second it's over, hug it out, man.
Yeah,
it's over. You had your fists out, did what you had to do, you settled it.
Yeah,
move on.
That's what I really like about like in just I mean I don't want to talk UFC, we're flexing here, but like in some of their fights, like you'll see like some of the people who are like really disciplined in like some of the old school martial arts, like they'll get down on their knees and like they'll bow to their opponent,
Lyoto
like
Machida,
they'll
yeah.
cry there with you, like like hey, like this is a thing for us, I might have won, but this is an experience for both of us, like the discipline, the camaraderie that like the winners will have, like it's crazy, it's really cool.
Yeah, there's usually a lot of respect.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Conor Khabib time.
Your wife sent me
Other than that-
DMs.
yeah, other than that, it's pretty respectful more times than not.
I really like when I'm watching a fight and someone just gets absolutely rocked and they hit the ground. They're obviously not coherent and they don't follow up. You know what I mean? Like they'll let them stay there. For
Oh,
a
the
second.
walk off, yeah.
Not even just the walk up, but even like you'll see them like full on diving, ready to go drop that last punch, and they'll see that this guy's not coherent and they'll just pull it off right at the end. It's like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, look, it takes a very special mindset to compartmentalize all that, right? Because on one hand, don't leave that up to the ref.
I was just about to
Because
say,
I mean, like, don't touch gloves at the beginning of your fight. Don't leave the finish up to the ref, right? I mean, unfortunately, even if you know for a fact that guy's unconscious, if the ref doesn't get in there fast enough and he comes back and you lose that fight, that's money out of your pocket, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of can't take that risk, especially at the professional ranks, like where a loss can mean so much against you. The UFC, I hate saying this, but they really only want guys who have 0 losses, 1 loss, at most 2 losses if you're in your like 10th, 11th, 12th fight. It's you or them, and kind of being able to compartmentalize that respect that you have for your opponent because they're going through what you're going through, while having that absolute savage killer mindset in you. I'll give you an example: Zach Blumberg. Amateur for us, he'll probably be a professional pretty soon. Kid's got hands of steel, but he doesn't touch gloves. If you go for it, he's going to hit you in the face anyway. That kid is in there to take your head off. And the second the fight's over, he'll shake your hand. But dog, I've never seen someone go into a cage angrier, and it's paid dividends for him so far. 3-0 with 3 first-round finishes.
It's like he tells us that with Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
Like when you get on the field, like I'm not your friend. I'm not helping pick you up. Like after the game, we'll dap it up. We'll be cool. But like I hate you right now. Like I do not want you to come out of this okay until it's done. And then are you okay, man?
Yeah. A lot of players like help each other out, like give them a little butt slap, like I mean, like I'd be like like breaking one of his fingers underneath the pile. Dude, it gets spicy underneath the pile.
Get pinched and shit.
Dude, I lost my
Bite
fingernails
him,
underneath the pile.
Arr.
That shit was bad. But one of my favorite strikes was Sean O'Malley. I think it was like 2 fights ago when the guy was laying flat on his back and he like looked at the ref and he didn't stop the fight. He goes, all right, and just
You're gonna make me.
dropped a straight right on this dude's jaw. And he was coherent. He was there.
Yeah.
But still, it was like, damn, like that was a
That's the
strike and a
scary-
half.
Yeah.
Bro.
Well, he had tried to walk off in the first round of that fight. That knockout happened in the third. Yeah. He wasn't all the way out. I'll be honest. I kind of look at Sean on that one where like, fight wasn't over.
No, he
Finish
was
it.
definitely still there. Like he had his
Right.
like he was.
Well,
he was
in the
ready.
first round shot. The third round shot, I was like, stop the fight. That's
Clip
enough.
was bad,
Yeah. Like I think it was Mark Smith was the referee. I remember watching that live and thinking, Mark, don't make him hit him again. Come on,
Please,
don't make him hit him
Mark,
again.
yeah.
And then he did it, and like DC's going, oh, he didn't have to do that.
And then you get Herb Dean like hit him again. Hit him again. Do it more. Dan Mergliata.
That's something you worry about though, man. Like there's only one person in there, right? And a ref is human. It's sometimes it's tough to tell when a person's unconscious. This is a dangerous game.
Dude, the scary ones, like when you see like the heavyweights going at it, like if I clip you down and then you got that 240 plus pound man coming down with another hook, they're not stopping, And like if the ref doesn't stop you, like we can easily call that like 100-pound punch each time, and that guy's just wailing on you, and then the ref stops in, like, dude, like these are big guys, like those hits hurt.
You remember Francis Ngannou,
I was just
Alistair
gonna say
Overeem?
Francis.
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
with Overeem, bro. When he got him with that uppercut and he was already on the ground, just came in. Oh no, Stipe was. I'm sorry, when he won the title.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and he came in for that last one, bro. Oh my God, I did not want to see that happen to Stipe.
Bouncing, yeah, like Jesus. So much respect for Stipe.
Yeah, some of these people's strength is crazy. Like just because you said Francis Ngannou, that dude's
My
punching
balls are
power is a
sweaty.
freak of that's Derek Lewis.
Real boxer too.
I don't know
Real
where I
boxer
got
proved a lot of people wrong in that
Yeah,
fight.
with Fury.
Tyson Fury,
right?
yep. Yeah, stood in there with him. I thought he won, but
I like
again, I'm
Tyson
not a
Fury,
boxing scoring expert. But
I was leaning towards Ngannou, and I like Fury.
Didn't they measure Ngannou's punch as like equivalent of getting hit with like a Nissan Altima or something?
I believe it was a Ford Focus at
yeah.
40 miles
I
an
am
hour. or
Francis
something like that.
Bro, 40 miles an hour, just getting the pro.
Yeah.
That's
Bro, like that
wild.
hurts. Like that hurts a lot. You know,
That
like,
kind of comes back to the I made that point earlier about like developing in a system, right? Like, bro, you're not going to develop yourself any stronger than digging sand for I think like a decade and a half. He did in Cameroon, right? Like that's just tough.
dude, a lot of those, like, I don't want to call them third world country fighters. Like that's their life is hard work. You know, so you come into a different respect. Like the Muay Thai fighters, dude. Like you fly out there, they're eating fish and rice for
Their
fucking
whole life's
90
been a
days.
fight.
Yeah,
Their whole life's been a fight. So it doesn't
Yeah.
change much in the ring.
They're like
No.
3 million to know right now.
A lot of really interesting studies about that too, about tribal athletes being added to the Olympics now. A lot of tribal fighters coming up in the UFC and in boxing, where dude, genetically it's just different, right? If you're developing like
true.
independently from the rest of the world, you know, who knows, right? Like you said, fighting to live every day, just fighting to survive.
Yeah. Like even Usain Bolt, you know, he's not the fastest guy in the world for no fucking reason. Like he's the fastest guy because of where he grew up, what he had to do growing up. You know, like you're literally running. you
Genetics
know?
too, part of it. You
They
know?
always help. Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's important.
Yeah.
I'd say it's safe to say we're not tough enough on our kids modern day.
No, we gotta beat our kids more.
Kids nowadays are soft.
Everyone hit your kids. No, I don't
16th
Put your kids in
birthday.
martial arts and tell them not to hit people.
Bro, even
Save
some-
it for practice, John.
But if your kids
That's
want
why
to fight
we're
when they turn
coaching our
18,
kids. It's our excuse, you know. Coach mixed martial arts, you know. I'll kick your kid's ass. You kick my kid's ass. You kick your kid's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna go from
Yeah.
Lex Daycare to Lex MMA real quick. By the time you turn 5, you learn.
All right, so are there rules for like 10 and under? Can that be hosted?
there is a capacity. And no, I'm serious. They have like juniors
Only 4
boxing. They
kids
have juniors
fighting.
MMA rules. We don't do it as a policy. We just don't do it. I don't know what the insurance requirements or licensing requirements or whatever would be to do that in New York. Can't imagine it's a lot, but I definitely don't need to continue seeing what West Virginia is doing with like 9-year-olds in full contact MMA without gear. They can't really hurt each other yet, but like it's definitely not good.
I'm not gonna lie, it would be kind of funny if like the opening fight was like 2 10-year-olds just swinging, bro. I would be crying.
We actually one of my favorite fights we've ever done.
Your fights would sell out.
Did you guys get to see Housebert? Was Ally Quinta there with Housebert at the December show? He has a mascot. It's like a blue. Oh, sorry. He has a blue house mascot because obviously he's a realtor.
so.
And that house fought CEO and matchmaker Chris Machi's nephew back in like I think it was July.
Like as the house.
Yeah, as the house. Yeah, the house
Nice.
fought a little kid, and the little kid won. Man, it was really embarrassing for the house.
Oh my god, high school mascot fights.
That would be a
That'd
hit.
be pretty
That would
cool.
be
That would be a
awesome.
hit.
Yeah.
Look, if it makes money, I'll promote it.
That would totally
the
make
car grappling. You see the car grappling.
yeah,
videos?
car jitsu,
Those
yeah.
are pretty neat.
That's
Those are pretty
awesome.
like real life situation almost.
And then I know in Russia they did like phone booth boxing.
Oh, they'll do anything in
Yeah,
Russia.
no,
They were doing like
literally.
5-on-1 fights over there.
Bro, like
Fight back.
you leave their kids out in the snow like during the day. Like those
They
are gonna be
cold
some.
plunge when they wake up.
Yeah, like those are just a different breed.
We're not built that way.
No, sambo. I mean, sambo in and of itself is just a whole fucking different animal. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus, dude.
They're growing up doing it too.
Yeah, literally.
So I think we are coming to the end of episode 18 here. TJ, before we do exit, is there anything that you want to plug? Anyone you want to shout out? Anything you want to talk about as kind of a final send off?
I always got something to plug, bro. First of all, we got
Let's hear it.
Flex Fight Series 32, February 24th, this Saturday. You can't get a ticket anymore. I'm sorry, everybody, but you can still watch us on pay-per-view. It's also our national and international live TV debut on Fubo Sports and Swerve Combat. Fantastic partners for us, man. It's a huge announcement, a huge milestone for us after, it's been 8 years of work for Chris and a lot of other people involved in Flex. I've been lucky enough to be along for the ride for the last 3 years and helped to kind of get to this point. But they've always been replay and on-demand partners for us. So now kind of graduating into that next level of doing a live event with them, partnering with them on that. They're taking the ride with us. We're taking the ride with them. So it's going to be a really fun first live event. Hoping it goes really well. I'm very confident it'll go very well. On March 29th, we'll be back in Manhattan, Hell's Kitchen, HK Hall. We have a really fun fight planned out for that one. I don't want to reveal the theme yet. I know people love looking into those themes. And then again, Firefight is going to be a huge one at the Selden Fire Department training facility. It's going to be a fundraiser for them. That one's going to be a lot of fun, bro. There's that's really unique. I hear Dana White talking a lot about the logistical challenge that is going to be for them to do a show in the Sphere, and like this is kind of our microcosm version of that, where like it's a very like the assets aren't in there for us in terms of like lighting and sound, but we have a fantastic partner in the Selden Fire Department who again, we're going to be benefiting with this fundraiser. They're going to be selling the food and the alcohol. They're going to be getting a percentage of the ticket sales. Really trying to help them raise money for this coming year. And it's just a really cool environment, man. There's gonna be old school fire trucks in there, the lights. I'm really excited for what we can do there.
We're
just kind
gonna
of
be
building
there.
up.
Yeah,
for
we're
us.
there.
That's our
Yeah.
town. I
Dude,
don't know if
I
you
could
know
walk
that. That's
there.
a town over. So
No, we're excited,
Yeah,
man.
that's
And
gonna be
that's gonna be
awesome.
pro MMA too. So that
Wow.
obviously comes with its own set of challenges, but it's gonna be a really good
Selden.
time. Yes,
I thought you were
Selden.
saying Sayville.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
Selden.
Selden.
Fire
Oh, we're
Department.
definitely there.
we
Yeah,
gotta
what?
be there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
We're
gonna be fun.
hometown heroes.
You can ride a skateboard there.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
Still fighting there?
those are We can try to make him fight that night. You know, again, he's got to look. You never want to look too far down the road. He's got a challenge in front of him on
Yeah,
Saturday.
that's true.
So you know, we'll talk about that next one afterwards.
sir.
But you know, Phil's always got.
Let's
a
go,
home with us.
Philly!
Let's go, Philly! Shout out to Phil Whalen.
Shout out Phil Whalen.
It's my
Yeah.
dog for real.
Get him, baby. Get him, baby.
TJ, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. We got the Flex Fight plug. We're ready to go. We'll see you this Saturday, man.
Saturday.
Oh, I
Saturday.
can't wait.
Saturday.
It's going to be a really good time. It's going to
Thanks
be a
for
party.
coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Again, it was a
course.
privilege to be asked to be on and to spend this time with you gentlemen, get to see the office and what goes down at Lexington Capital Holdings. And you know, you guys have a fantastic company culture here, and it was an honor to get to come in and observe that for tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you,
TJ.
man.
We
Really appreciate
that.
it.
Beautiful.
That's a wrap.
Signing off.
18, baby. Peace.
Peace.